G'day guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Sam's Home Kitchen. Been getting a lot of really good feedback among my friends and family. People are asking me about how I do compost, and they're asking about the reusable freezer bags. So it feels really amazing knowing that small things that I share on this channel can have a positive impact and help get people to start thinking how to be more sustainable, and at the same time, how to save money. So thank you so much, and I look forward to keep sharing my tips and tricks, what I do, and also let's keep cooking and keep saving money. This week we're cooking sweet potato. Sweet potato at the moment is in season over here in Australia. One of my local grocery shops, they are selling sweet potato at 69 cents per kilo at the moment. But yeah, so one of the best ways to save money is to cook food that's in season. Sweet potato is one of those things where you see it and just like, what do I do with it? I'm keen to share with you the recipe that I got for this week, help you make some sweet potato gnocchi. Super delicious. You can have it as it is, super pillowy and soft, or you can also double fry it so you can have a crispy exterior and soft interior. It holds really well in the freezer, so you can make a batch, put it away, and it's ready to go whenever you want it. So yeah, without further ado, let's get cooking.
So this footage was shot 2 weeks ago when I got a good haul of root vegetables. I got a whole bunch of beetroot, potato, and sweet potato for just $3. $3 dues. So the sweet potato that I'm using today are from back then. The beauty of root vegetables is that they hold so well, no refrigeration required, and are just so versatile. Highly, highly recommended. First thing we'll need is obviously sweet potato, some salt for seasoning, and some flour. I found that eggs are not essential for gnocchi, so by keeping it out, it makes the recipe vegan, so even better. To start with, we want to preheat the oven to 200 degrees Celsius or 392 degrees in Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes. Next is to grab a baking tray and load it up with our sweet potato. I found when baking sweet potato for gnocchi, it is not necessary to cover the sweet potato with alfoil, as it traps more moisture and ends up requiring more flour when making the dough, which is not ideal. Pop the tray in the oven when 20 minutes is up. Depending on the size of your sweet potato, it normally takes about 15 to 30 minutes to cook through. Easiest way to tell is by putting a knife through and stab it gently. If there's little to no resistance, it means it's dead. It's all good to go. Once the sweet potatoes are cooked through, pull it out of the oven and leave it to cool off for a wee bit. Come back in 10 to 15 minutes or until it's cool enough for your hands to handle. Shout out to my chef friends who love leaving comments to show off their nerve-damaged hands because they can't feel the heat anymore. Next, we want to cut the sweet potato in half and scoop the flesh out with a spoon into a mixing bowl. Depending on the sweet potato you got, some might be easier to just peel the skin off, so definitely find a way that works the best for you. You're seeing me putting the sweet potato skins in my compost box, but I actually ended up saving the bigger pieces, popped them back in the oven, and used the residual heat to turn them into some delicious crisps. Once all of the sweet potato flesh is scooped down, it's time to mash it up. I'm using a stick blender here, but a potato masher, food processor, or a fork should work just fine. The goal here is to break up the chunky parts, so our gnocchi will be nice and smooth. Give it a blitz here and there until there is no obvious chunks. We are not making puree for your 6 months old, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I ended up having about 600 grams of sweet potato, so I added 150 grams of all-purpose flour. Make sure that you're using all-purpose flour instead of self-raising flour. This is very important, and I will tell you why later. Sweet potato to flour ratio is about 4:1 here. Mix your sweet potato and flour together in a bowl first. Oh yeah, don't forget to add a pinch of salt for seasoning. Combine the dough thoroughly. Flour your workbench and your hands, then transfer the dough onto your countertop. Next, knead your dough until it's well combined. You might need extra flour throughout this process, depending on how wet your sweet potato is. Just make sure you don't go overboard with your flour. The more flour you add to the dough, the firmer your gnocchis will turn out to be. This is also why I recommended baking without it covered, so that would require less flour here. I highly recommend working with the dough scraper or a spatula, so when working with wetter dough like this, the less handling required, the easier it is. We then want to cut the dough into portions. I find balls of palm size about right to work with. Too big of a ball will make it hard. I mean, too big of a dough is difficult to roll out evenly. When rolling the dough out, make sure your workbench is well floured. Last thing you want to do is push this dough out onto a clean bench and end up smearing the dough all over it. One little tip here when rolling it out is only put pressure on the dough with your palms when pushing outwards, and go gentle when rolling it back. Our palms have got bigger surface area which rolls the dough out more uniformly. Make sure not to put too much pressure on the dough with your fingers, as that will turn your dough into a ribbed kind of object, which is also long. Let's not go too far here. Once the dough is rolled out to about 2 cm diameter, you can cut the dough into gnocchis. I find cutting it every 2 cm give it the best result, making the gnocchi about a 2x2 shape. You can leave the gnocchi as a square kind of shape, put a dimple in it, or go fancy. Get a fork and flour the back of it, grab a gnocchi, push it against the fork and roll it gently at the same time. The gnocchi will have a nice pocket to catch some pasta sauce with some cute design on the back. While you're rolling out the gnocchi, it's a good idea to have some water boiling in the background. Grab a big pot and put it on the stove so when the gnocchis are ready to go, so is the water. I find gnocchi making can be so therapeutic when making on your own, or quite fun when doing with others. Once the gnocchis are all rolled out, we want to cook them up. You want your pot of water to be boiling and put your gnocchis in batches so they don't get overcrowded in the pot and stick to one another. Use a spatula and give it a gentle stir to make sure the gnocchis are not sticking to the bottom of the pot. The gnocchis will float to the top once they are cooked. There was one time I ran out of all-purpose flour, and be the smartass like myself, I used self-raising flour. It was all well and good until I cooked a gnocchi. They tripled in size and floated to the top instantly, and I had no way to tell whether or not they were cooked. Lessons learned, don't be like Sam. Scoop the cooked gnocchis out into a mixing bowl, hit it with some cooking oil and give it a toss so they don't stick. We can then move on to the next batch until it's all cooked. I made 3 different shapes of gnocchi this time, and they are pretty adorable. To go with the gnocchi, I grabbed some basil and herbs from my local community garden and made some pesto. I started by picking the leaves off and cut them into smaller pieces. I then cut some walnut and toasted in a pan for extra flavour. In a mortar and pestle, I zested some lime and added a juice of half a lime, toasted nuts in, drizzle of olive oil, and grind it up into a pasty kind of texture. Don't forget to add salt for seasoning, and always taste your food and adjust the flavour accordingly. I put a pan on medium heat with some oil. Put the gnocchis in. When the pan is hot enough, you should hear it sizzling. That's a pan giving your gnocchi some crispy skin. As our gnocchis are all cooked, we're just crisping up the exterior. Turn your gnocchi when the bottom is golden brown, and we add a good spoon of pesto. Give it a stir and it's time to plate up. Grate some parmesan if you want to go fancy, or go without because, to this point, the recipe is 100% vegan friendly to my surprise. Drizzle some olive oil and voila, this is our sweet potato gnocchi done. For the extra gnocchi I made, they hold really well in the freezer and is perfect for school night dinners. I put them in my silicone freezer bag and flatten it out so it can be easily broken into smaller portions when frozen in the freezer. I lay it flat to freeze and I can stand it up once frozen. As always, the cost breakdown is as below. 1 kilo of sweet potato is 69 cents, 150 grams of all-purpose flour is 15 cents, gives us about 2 portions of the store-bought equivalent, which works out to be 42 cents per portion, or would you rather pay $4 per packet from the supermarket?
Alright, there we have it. Sweet potato gnocchi. Bit of a classic with a twist. The crispy outside and the fluffy and soft inside. It's just a really good combination. Hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. I turn the sweet potato, I pop them back into the oven and then turn it into some really healthy crisps. Zero waste.